Your heart is the support system for every organ in your body. The brain can't function without the heart pumping. The liver can't quiver when the heart has no rhythm. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your heart. Matters of the Heart podcast is a safe space for you to face the true matters of your heart. The issues that causes stress, even when you're seemingly at rest. Issues like hurt, pain, betrayal, and shame are things that are buried alive in the back of the brain. I call them undiagnosed heart traumas. Others refer to them as heartbreak, when in fact it's heartache because the heart can't break. I know, sounds pretty interesting to hear, but you'll learn more as you enter in and allow the healing to begin. I'm Natasha Mayo, the execution strategist. Welcome to Matters of the Heart. Good afternoon, right? I was ready to say morning. Good afternoon, guys. As always, I am uber ecstatic to be in your presence once again, bringing you Matters of the Heart. I am Natasha Mayo, all things execution, mind, body, soul, and spirit. I work with, I assist, I serve high-achieving professionals to take their good to great in every area of their lives. And so you're not here by happenstance. You are indeed a high-achieving professional in some area of your life. And so today we are talking about dissecting the intellect. Oftentimes we don't take time to even dissect our intellect because we just go on about our lives, not realizing that it needs to be dissected. Oh, yes, indeed. It needs to be dissected. Otherwise, it will hang out in previous experiences. It will hang out in previous habits. It will hang out in the things that has gotten you to the place where you are. The issue with that is where you are can't sustain you for where you are going. And so now that I have introduced myself to you, I want you to take the time to introduce yourself to me. Tell me who you are, where you're tuning in from, and what it is that you are expecting. You should never enter into a place and not have any expectations. Or maybe you're here because somebody invited you, you received a share, but you have to know the intent of the person that invited you, that it must be something for your good. So welcome. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know who you are. This is an interactive conversation. I'm not here to talk at you. I am here to talk with you, to get you from the place of good to great in every area of your life. And so if you're just now tuning in, we are talking about dissecting the intellect to help you get to your new dimensions, right? Hello, Jamie. Thanks so much for joining from Laurel. That's my sister. And so we're talking about dissecting the intellect. And before I ever go into anything, I always talk about the purpose of a thing, because what you don't understand, abuse is inevitable. What you don't understand, you'll repeat over and over and over again. So take the time to share this with someone, guys. Don't keep this goodness to yourself. There are people that you don't know. There are people that I don't know that you know that need this information, and or they can share it with others that need it. And so the purpose of the intellect was given to us to process our senses, our five senses. Now, I mentioned to you guys, I am here not to talk at you, but to talk to you, to talk with you. And so I want you to help self-identify what the five senses are. Now, you may be thinking, come on now, everybody knows the five senses. We do. But the disconnect in that is that they are basic tools that go unused. I'm going to say that again. The five senses are basic tools that go unused because we think we know it. We think we got it. But then your not knowing it shows up in your life, in your decisions, in your execution. And so, what are the five senses? I want you guys to talk to me, share with me, what are the five senses? Name one. I'll start. Hear. You know, you guys know I love hearing. I practice, I discipline my hearing consistently in every area of my life. What's another sense that God gave us to operate in the natural realm, in the world? And so, hear, taste, see, smell. What else? Am I missing something here? See. Jamie says see. Thank you. Hear, taste, smell, see. And I feel like I'm missing another one. Touch, right? And so the purpose of the intellect was God's gift to us to process. I'm going to say that again. The purpose of the intellect was God's gift to us to process. Processing those things that show up in our lives, right? Processing the way we do things, processing the way we think, processing the way we reflect, processing the way we remember. It becomes perverted when we hang out with the process in the spiritual. I'm going to say that again. The reason for your natural senses was to help us process our intellect in natural things, right? Hear, see, taste, touch, smell, in natural things. It became perverted when we began to rely on those things in spiritual aspects, right? So, for example, one night I was sleeping in bed and I began to smell gas, right? And so immediately, Holy Spirit woke me up because I smelled gas. I couldn't see it because I was asleep. And so that is a natural response to the reason of our intellect. The intellect says there's gas escaping. There should not be gas escaping. And so I woke up to find that the stove was, what I thought was turned off, was still on just a little bit, right? And so that's the reason for, that's the purpose of the intellect. That's the reason for the five senses, is to help us process to get to a conclusion. Got it? It's become, again, perverted by us relying on the intellect. Here's what happens when the intellect goes unchecked, right? The intellect causes confusion, making simple decisions complicated. I'm going to say that again. The intellect, unchecked or not dissected, causes confusion, making simple decisions complicated. How many of you guys have had to make what you know is a very simple decision, but for some reason it became so complicated? That's because your gut was telling you exactly what to do, but the intellect was confusing you. How many? I want to hear from you guys. Share with me. I see you guys jumping in. Share with me how your intellect, unchecked, has caused things to become complicated. Another thing that the intellect does is it causes one to negotiate with their greatness. How many of you guys know in your gut that you should be making this decision, but then you negotiate your greatness? You know that you're supposed to be further ahead in life. You know that things that you see other people doing, that you can knock them out the park. But your intellect begins to say, well, you don't have that degree. Well, you don't have that certificate. Well, you don't have this, that, or the other, but your gut is telling you, go. The intellect, unchecked, negotiates your greatness. It also causes you to begin to second guess. How many of y'all have made a decision and then you have what you call that squirrely, I call it the squirrel mentality, right? The squirrel typically has made its way across the street, but then it second guess their intellect and then they double back, and oftentimes that's where you have roadkill from. And so Marlene says me that she can identify with that. Yes, Marlene. And so that's the first place where you begin to identify areas that need to improve, is that you own them, right? We don't want to. Nature tells us, or intellect tells us, that we are large and in charge, and we don't need to change. We don't need to check. We don't need to do anything different because it's got us to where we are presently. The disconnect is it's got you to where you are presently based off old execution. And so, in order to get to the next dimension, you can't hang out with old wineskins. You have to continue in the process to get you to the next dimension by doing things that are unchecked, not relying on the old intellect. And so Marlene says, I always feel I'm not qualified enough. Listen, Marlene, you are not in that position alone or experienced enough, she says. You're not in that position alone. Here's the thing. God never calls the qualified. He qualifies the called. Literally, he qualifies the called. And so here's where new dimensions require you to enter into the unknown, right? And so people think, oh, I've gotten this promotion in life. I've gotten this promotion on the job. I've gotten this promotion in relationship based on old intellect, based on old way of thinking. But why is it that I'm at a plateau? Why is it that I'm stuck? Because new dimensions will call you in, but they'll cause you to rise higher. In the rise, you hang out with intellect because it's uncomfortable. That's where that double back comes from. That's where I'm not good enough. Am I really supposed to be here? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. In fact, that is your qualifier that you're supposed to be there. When you have gotten to a place where you know it all, go ahead and check out. Literally, because I don't care what level you grow to in life, better is always available. And so if you think that you know it all, you have stunted your growth right there, here, and now. And so the beauty of next dimensions is that it requires you to enter into the unknown. Marlene, when you begin to feel those feelings, going back to the 5 natural senses, when you begin to feel those feelings of uncertainty, of I am not enough, you got to say, oh, I am in divine alignment right now. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, because now you give your intellect opportunity to rise to where you're going, not where you've been. You see, if you know all things, you're hanging out with old things. But when you have those feelings of not enough or uncertainty, you have now tapped in to unknown stimulation. New disciplines also develop and strengthen in new dimensions. This is where people get confused at. They think old thinking. They think that old thinking they thinking that their old thinking is going to carry them through their new way of living. It won't. It will not. New disciplines also strengthens your ability to listen. Going back to the 5 senses. Hear, touch, taste, see, smell. Right? Hear, touch, taste, see, and smell. Your 5 senses naturally is designed to help propel you, but they won't sustain you for where you're going. You got it? Your 5 natural senses will propel you, but they won't sustain you for where you're going. I love that. Marlene says, I am in divine alignment. And see, here's the thing about declarations and affirmations. They are only as good as the execution. I'm going to say that again. The thing about declarations and affirmations is they are only as good as the execution. And so whatever level you execute on will be the level that the declaration and the affirmation will manifest. I'm going to say that again. Whatever level you execute on will be the manifestation of your declaration. And so you got to make sure that you are in alignment in your actions with what you're declaring. New dimensions expose the holes, right? I love entering into the unknown because it shows me what I really don't know. It shows me those things that I need to tighten up. It shows me to go back to the basics. It shows me how I landed where I am, but it won't level me to where I'm going. It won't leverage, not level, it won't leverage me to where I'm going. So you got to go back to the basics with your intellect. Don't allow your intellect to become cluttered with what you've known. You got it? Don't allow your intellect to become cluttered with what you know. New dimensions, talking about the new dimension, dissecting the intellect to build your brilliance at the next dimension. You see, it's easy to feel not enough or uncertain when you haven't developed your intellect, your reasoning, your understanding at the next dimension. It has to be built consistently over and over and over again. New dimensions requires up level thinking, but the intellect calls it to resist because it doesn't make natural sense. I'm going to say that again. New dimensions causes you to up level your thinking because it doesn't make sense to the natural five senses. Thinking begins to reason with what you can do. Some of it you haven't entered in to know if you can or you can't. So you just have to go and then grow. I love how our life is always a lesson. It's always teaching us. We do it repeatedly, but we never take time to hang out in it. One of the things that I'm referring to is apps. They are always being updated and they always require us to update. If we don't update our apps, what typically happens? Things start slowing down and then eventually they stop working. Well, the same is so with your intellect. As you grow, you have to update your intellect. As you go, you have to update your intellect. Otherwise, it will slow down. Otherwise, it will begin to reason with your greatness. Otherwise, it will present obstacles because it's hanging out at the last place of clarity. And so your last place of clarity is where you're growing out of now. And so it doesn't make sense to the intellect. It's outdated. You have to update your intellect. You have to dissect your intellect. You have to identify where you're going and then reverse engineer to see if your intellect is in alignment. I'm going to say that again. You have to reverse engineer, identify where you're going, then see if your intellect is in alignment with where you are going. That's how you say, I need an update. Because the intellect will be on the other side of the room with where you are going. Yes, Tanya, it's something that we overlook day after day after day because our intellect has gotten us to a certain place of safety. Safe ain't safe. I'm going to say that again. Safe ain't safe. Anytime you operate in a place of safety, get out of there quick because you'll begin to dial back your very existence. One more time for those in the back that didn't hear me the first time, those that are just coming in. Safe ain't safe because it will cause you to dial back what you were created to do. Your very existence will begin to simply exist and not thrive. Safe is never safe. And so you need an update. When is the last time that you have updated your intellect? When is the last time that you had a conversation about your intellect? Or do you just think you are brilliant and that's enough to carry you through? Do you think, have you allowed your brilliance to be in the custody of yesterday? That's so good. Have you allowed your brilliance to be in the custody of what you've learned? Not just professionally, but personally. When is the last time that you have invested in personal development? Because here's the thing, who you are personally shows up professionally. You can have all the degrees, all of the certifications, all of the ends that you think will bring you to an end, and it still not be enough. Because personally, you have become depleted because you've been reaching for all things professionally, leaving your personal self to fend for itself. When is the last time, guys? It's a question. This is an interactive conversation. When is the last time you've updated your intellect? When is the last time that you challenged your intellect to rise to new dimensions or new levels? On the last broadcast, I broke down the difference between levels and dimensions. And so I'll do a recap for those that are coming back in. Levels are steps, dimensions are leaps. Both are necessary, but you got to step before you can leap. Otherwise, you'll be leaping in uncharted territory with nothing to sustain you. In fact, that's how some of y'all feel now. You have leaped into this new dimension and you feel like there is nothing to sustain you. You've even asked your questions. You've even asked yourself questions. How did I get here? Am I supposed to be here? Oh God, you said. Now you're questioning God. Now you're questioning God on what he told you because you didn't participate in the process of development. Good God from Zion. Can we just hang out right there for a minute? Are you questioning what God told you because you have been disobedient in the steps that he showed you? God showed you step by step by step by step what to do, and you disobeyed him. You decided to do step 1 and step 3 and thought it was going to leap you to step 5. No, one misstep is full disobedience. So just imagine 3. If they didn't go around the wall of Jericho, the number of times that God told them, imagine where they would be. Same is so with you. Half obedience is disobedience. And so where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. And so Tanya says, it's been a while, sad to say. Here's the thing, Tanya, it's not sad to say. Thank God that you are able to say it. Some people aren't. Some people aren't. Some people have gone to their grave unfulfilled. So it's great to say, it's great to be able to identify where you are, because if you can identify where you are, you can go to where you need to be. And so thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability, because guess what? Now that's going to stimulate different decisions. Update your intellect, guys. Update it. Start with where you are and then grow thereby. Grow thereby. Don't you dare rely on your intellect for this new season, this new dimension that God has called you to. Where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. I just simply need you to be obedient. I and God. That's it. God don't need your brilliance. He needs your obedience. Will you obey? Will you follow the steps that God has already preordained for you? That place of prosperity that he said he has for you? Follow the steps that God has ordered. I remember when I opened up a business that I've now closed, that God told me, you are building a business that's already built. Before that, he told me, I am calling you into uncharted territory. I simply need you to flow with my current. You talk about uncertainty, Marlene. You talk about thinking that you're not enough, and God tells you, I'm calling you into uncharted territory. Just follow my current. And so he gives you the vision and then also the provision attached to it at the same time. The problem is that we're using old intellect to operate in spiritual discernment. We're using old intellect to qualify. All I need you to do is obey. Use your five senses to hear God different. I'm going to say that again. Use your five senses to hear God different. Marlene says, follow and step out on faith. Yes, yes, and yes. Here's another opportunity to strengthen your intellect, Marlene. You don't have to step out on what already is. And that's for all of y'all that's coming back in the replay. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You don't have to step out in it. All you have to do is live in it. Make a decision. The Bible tells us that the just shall live, not step out on, not leap. You'll hear people say, oh, I jumped out on faith. Live by faith. That's all you got to do is live by faith. You don't step out on it. It's not something that you're given the day and then it's taken away tomorrow. It's yours. You go to bed every single night and you wake up in faith because you ain't wake yourself up. And so you're living by faith by going to bed, knowing that you're waking up tomorrow. And so use those same principles in your life. Yes, Jamie says, trust God. And so in order to trust God, you have to have a relationship with God. Because what you don't have relationship with, you can't trust. I am not going to trust somebody that I don't have a relationship with. It's just not going to happen. It's part of the five senses that God gave us, right? And so Marlene says, yes, he does. But I've been stuck with my old intellect. I've been disobedient again. Marlene, just like I shared with Tanya, thank God that you now have identified. You've now located. You were very specific that you were hanging out with your old intellect. You said that I've been stuck with my old intellect. That's identification, baby. You also owned it. You said that you didn't blame it. You said that so you've identified, you've owned it. Now it's time to execute. Execute one area where you were disobedient and obey. And it doesn't have to be humongous. That also gets people off, that they feel like, oh, it's not big enough. Listen, the little things matter, because what you do in the little, you'll do in the much. You see, God could not promote me to next dimension if I was mishandling old ones, if I mishandled the little, if I mishandled myself. Come on, can we talk about self? If I mishandle myself, then I will also mishandle his people. If I self-sabotage myself, I will also self-sabotage his people. You see? And so little things matter because they're little to you, but they're huge to God. Guess why? Because they're seeds, right? The faith that the size of a mustard seed God talks about. And so if you look at that little thing, if you look at the size of a mustard seed and see how God was so enamored by it, that if you just have faith the size of a mustard seed, you'll know that the areas where you've been disobedient in is nothing to God. And so you've owned it, you've acknowledged it, you've identified it. Now execute consistently over and over and over again. One of the ways that I execute differently was cleaning my daggone kitchen every single night, making sure that there were no dishes in the sink. You see, my desires begin to align with my actions. And it wasn't even necessarily about the kitchen not being clean, but rather discipline at the next dimension. Because if I can discipline my habits with washing dishes, I can discipline my heart with washing the way I feel, five senses, and think about people. You see, one area is never limited to the one area with God. God is not compartmentalized. And so we look at it and we want to intellectually understand it, and you can't understand God with your five senses. The five senses was created for natural decisions. The five senses was created for natural decisions. Get out of the intellect and in to God's directions. And so Marlene says she got revelation. Mine was dishes. Marlene saying, making my bed every day. Yes, ma'am. Let that be your first point of obedience. Literally. And watch that thing take you to new dimensions. Like God will download things while you're making your bed up about other things that you were once stuck in, because you've been obedient in this one particular place. Guys, it's that simple. It literally is that simple. And so trust God in the seemingly little things, and you'll see your life transform in every area of your life, one by one by one by one, literally, guys. And so I love the interaction. I love the vulnerability. I love the courage. I love the ownership. That's how you build your brilliance. That's how you operate at the next dimension. No stress, no strain, no struggle. That's how you walk into a room with people of all different lives, of all different professions, and you own it. Talking about me now. God has called and continue to call me in rooms where naturally I wouldn't qualify. Naturally. But because God called me, I know I belong there. And I stand in the call. Will you stand in the call and not your intellect? You see, I don't allow my intellect to negotiate my greatness. When God says go, I go on demand, and it's literally being built as I go. Literally. Literally being built as I go. And because of my obedience, it's sweatless. No stress, no strain, no struggle. And seemingly, it's been like that for all of my life. But guess what? As I begin to grow to new dimensions, I also begin to see holes. And so as you see the holes, they are simply notification, update needed, discipline needed. They are not notifying you to condemn you. They are notifying you to propel you. Accept the invitation. Access to greater granted. I want you guys to tap in for sure. I want you guys to type that in the comment. Access to greater granted. 3 words. Access to greater granted is 4. Access to greater granted. You have to give your greaterness, I make up words, if you don't know now, you know. You have to give your greaterness permission. Then once you give it permission, Begin to strengthen it. Begin to discipline it. Begin to invite it in to other areas of your life. Access to greater granted. Yes, Marlene. Access to greater granted in every area of your life. Discipline your intellect. Intellect was designed to help you process your five senses naturally. Don't allow your intellect to delay your next dimensions. Yes, Tanya, access to greater granted. Give it permission. Invite it in so that the entire world, right? Folks limited to the universe. Listen, God created the universe. Why would you succumb to something that is lower than God, what he created? No, all the world, not just the universe, but all the world. God said that he gave you dominion. Act like it. Access granted to greater. Expect, begin to look for people to provide opportunity for you to up level to your next dimension. You see, God used people. God is spirit. And so he used people like myself with you guys to help you get to next levels in your life. And so you have to expect people to show up to help you grow to your next dimension, to give you opportunity to go to your next dimension. Otherwise, you'll hang out when in your intellect, because your intellect only knows what it knows because you've only given it so much to grow. And so you have to give it permission to grow. What's one area that you know needs permission to grow, that you have been a little scared to go, that you have been uncertain, that you feel like you're not enough? Or here's one, you feel like that you'll no longer be liked at that new dimension. You may feel like you'll be left alone. What's that one area? This is real-time revelation, guys, to help you go from a place of good to great in every area of your life. What you believe matters. You didn't come this far just to come this far. Greater, better is always available. Get out of your own way, guys. Get out of your decision, your next decision being in queue, right? I love that. Hey, Tanya, public speaking. Yes. And so what I want you to do, Tanya, is I want you to say access granted to public speaking. Make it plain, make it clear. I tell my clients, make your request known. Will you? Make your request known, because when you make your request known, all of what you need will find you. I'm going to say that again. That's so good. When you make your request known, all of what you need will find you. Tanya, I'm not sure if you're Tanya E, because we got two Tanyas on here now. So I'm talking to everybody. But since Tanya mentioned that, I want to share a testimony and also something very relatable for all of you guys to see and understand how the intellect works, and then how I gave it opportunity and access to grow. I too was afraid of public speaking. Yes, me. Listen, every time I share that testimony, I have to laugh at myself, because you see me now. You see bold, you see courageous, you see matter of fact, you see the declarations of I belong wherever I am. But it wasn't always. My intellect had so many negotiations going from my knowing. The five senses had my intellect stuck, right? And so I I was literally pushed into speaking. I would do it. I could do it behind the scenes, no problem. I could do it in small groups and intimate settings. And that's another thing. You'll begin to have wise sounding escapes where you'll negotiate with your greatness by what you think should be or what feels comfortable to you. I have begun to say that I like small groups, and I do because they're very intimate. But I was limiting my ability to grow to the next dimension because I was hanging out with that belief because it was comfortable and safe. And so I was like, I'm fine. I can hang out here. I can have discussions here, and we're good. Only until God used somebody to say that mattered, that had influence in my life, to say, the people need to hear your voice. And so I told y'all, I obey God on demand. And so because she had influence and I knew that it was God, I went. That was the first and the last time that I did something scared. You see, people doing something scared should be a one and done. Once it's done, it's over. Stop hanging out with doing it scared. Do it and be done with it. Don't hang on to, I'm going to do it scared, I'm going to do it scared, I'm going to do it scared. Listen, we done with scared. And so as I did that, I realized, I acknowledged, one, I need some help. I know, reverse engineering, what I've done and where God is calling me to, and where he's calling me to requires some work, the unknown. And so I began to seek out speaking coaches. I never knew that was a thing. But because I gave permission, I gave greater permission, then all of what I needed found me. It showed up. Literally, God began to speak to me in dreams, and God is always speaking, but you have to be in a posture to receive. I'm going to say that again. God is always speaking, but you must be in a posture to receive because you won't hear it as it's being delivered. And so God began to show me that I needed a speaker coach that I didn't even know existed, didn't know was a thing. He then showed me who it was. I didn't know the person, never saw him, never heard of them. You got it? And then I made the investment to up-level my brilliance at the next dimension. Now you guys get to partake in the fruit of my labor, in the fruit of my obedience. And here's the thing, it was already in me. It just needed to be developed, strengthened, and disciplined. And so the very thing that you need is already in you. You just simply need assistance to get it out. That's where the dissecting the intellect comes in at. Identify, own, execute. I identified I needed assistance. I owned it and I executed. Here I am today. And so I think I saw that Marlene says hers is speaking too. Listen, what you need is already on the inside of you. Identify, own, and execute. Don't hang out in it. Because Tanya E., you already know, we've had this conversation a couple years now, and I love your execution. I love it. I tell you privately, and I'm now telling you again publicly, I love your execution. I remember years ago that Tanya E. came to one of my workshops. It was actually called Unleashing Your Brilliance, or Brilliance Unleashed. And God had showed me some things about her, and I shared them with him. She was like, nope, not me. And now those very things that she said, nope, not me, she's beginning to do it. And so you are indeed an executor at the next dimension. And so go. I'll share with you, just like my midwife at the time shared with me, is that the people need to hear your voice. Go. You are not limited to your zip code, but if you don't release it, you won't go beyond it. period. I know, but you got this. You got this. It's not by happenstance that we're here and we're talking about this very thing. It's time. God is calling us to new levels, to new dimensions in life. And guess what? It's not just about us. God knows what we need and when. And so he allows us to grow through the process. And so at that moment of the need, we're now receptive to the direction. Go. You got this. Greater is waiting for so many people that you don't even know. And the same is so with all of you guys that are on here. Your area, your gifts that God has given you is not just for you. And so those things that you are scared of, you're not only holding yourself back, but you're holding others back. There are so many people that have gone and going as a result of my goal. That is the will of God. Maya Angelou says it best: when you learn, teach. And so your teaching can be completely different. Some people are not called to the front. And so don't even allow that to overwhelm you. But where you are called, you're equipped. God has already provided the way of escape. He simply needs your obedience. Stop making life hard for yourself. Dissect your intellect consistently over and over and over again. On the last broadcast, I told you guys that I don't even ask God, what I'm doing. I don't go to him with the things that I'm doing. We all have a plethora of things that we're doing. What are you up to? Oh, you can run it down. My question is, what are you not up to? What areas have God called you to and you just dismissing it? And so I check my intellect consistently to make sure that I am in alignment with God's, here it is, current directives. You see, you could have been in God's divine alignment last year, and so things were sweatless, happening so easy for you, but that was last year. And so I'm always in the present with God. What is it that you have for me to do today? Not yesterday, not last year, but today. And so Tanya E says, I've been working on it as a self-teacher. Yes. And that's just how it develops, T. That's just how it develops as a self-teacher for yourself first. But then I also see you out there with other people. I see the testimonials and I get excited about it. And so that's how it develops. Before you know it, you'll be out in front of the masses sharing this same testimony. I love it. Good stuff. I love it. Where God has called you to, he's already equipped you for. Simply get an agreement with him. Access to greater granted. I want you guys to write that on a sticky and place it on your refrigerator, your mirror, wherever you frequent the most. You see, words matter. You see behind me, it says blessed. And so whether I say it or not, I see it. And so I always have words speaking to me. And then to the right of me is my list of I ams. And one of the I ams says that I am prosperity in every area of my life. Another one says that I am surrender. Not that I am surrendered, but that I am surrender. And so when I enter a building, when I enter Facebook, people see surrender. People see, oh, I remember that she was one way and now she's another. And so I see words that speak to me without even speaking. And so get that in front of you. Put it on your laptop. Put it on areas that you frequent. Access to greater granted in every area of your life. Dissect your intellect consistently over and over and over again. You have never reached your pinnacle. And so better is always available. Go get it. Don't be scared to go to your next dimension. You should be scared to hang out at your old one. Marlene says, I've already did it. I love it. Yes, Marlene, immediate execution. And now begin to operate in consistent obedience. So when you see access to greater granted, make sure that access to greater is granted. When those opportunities show up, access granted. Remind yourself by your movement, by your decisions. I love that. And so, guys, we're now entering into questions and answers. You guys have been very interactive, and I love that. If there's something that I haven't shared about dissecting your intellect and building your brilliance at the next dimension, please feel free. This is your time to check in. If you've had some aha moments, if you've had some clarity, if you have an area where you want to just share testimony, this is your time to do it. And so Lisette says, how do you stop relying on your intellect and how do you use it the way God called us to? I love that. And so one of the ways to stop relying on your intellect is to identify where there are areas of frustration, right? And I'm using very practical answers so that you can quickly identify it. When there's areas of frustration, you are operating in your own intellect. The frustration comes as a result of you not seeing a way of escape, as a result of going through your tickler system, your checklist of I did this, I did that, I did that, I did that. And nothing of what you know to do is no longer working. It's no longer working. And so you pause in that and invite God in to help you make different decisions. You'll be amazed at what that pause can do. Pausing brings you clarity of vision in the moment that you do it. Why? Because pause is an act of surrender. Pausing is an act of surrender. And so pause and then invite God in to what you can do, your way of escape. Right? Then, where did the question go? It's moving fast. How do you use it the way God called us to? So the way God called us to is one, again, identify those 5 senses. Hear, see, touch, taste, smell. Is that all 5? If not, add it in. Identify those 5 senses. And then see if you're operating in them to make decisions. Your 5 senses was to process natural decisions. But when it has gotten to the place where it is controlling, where it's controlling your decisions, meaning that you're not allowing them to be stimulated and even up leveled, then you know you need to surrender them. And so, again, I want to make sure that's clear. How do you stop relying on your intellect? 1, identify the frustration, knowing that you're relying fully on your intellect, right? When there's God, he says, I add no sorrow, right? It's sweatless victory. No stress, no strain, no struggle. How do you use it the way God called us to? Make sure that you're not operating naturally in a spiritual realm. When God calls you to new dimension, what you know will no longer help you grow because you don't know what you don't know. And so because you don't know it, it brings on frustration and irritation. The 5 senses were never developed for spiritual things. Got it? Does that make sense? Is that clear, Lisette? Want to make sure that I'm clear. I want you guys to walk away from here loaded, ready to go. And like Marlene did, execute right there on demand. I love that question. Any additional questions? Ahas, all that good stuff. You guys have been very interactive, and I love that. Love, love, love it. So again, guys, a quick recap while you're typing in. I know sometimes there can be a delay. Here's the areas where you can identify your intellect and if it needs to be developed and strengthened. 1, when is the last time you've checked your intellect? 2, is it outdated? Once you've checked it, now identify, is it outdated? Are you operating in old decisions, old habits? 3, is it aligned with where you're going, not where you've been? I love, love, love that one. That's the one that I use all the time. Is my intellect in alignment with where I'm going or where I have been, right? And then aligned intellect will create new intersections. Isn't that good, guys? Aligned intellect will create new intersections. And so, where your old intellect runs you right into a dead end, your new intellect will open ways with an S to win. So, I'm going to go over it again. When is the last time you've checked your intellect? Check it, guys. It's just not questions. It's not rhetorical. I want you to check it. Even if you checked it this morning, check it again. You can't overcheck your intellect. All right. Is it outdated? Now that you've checked it, is it outdated? And here's what I want you to do. I didn't say it the first time, but I'll say it now. I want you to let your results answer the question, right? Because it's quick for us to say, oh, yeah, my intellect is updated and I'm doing great. Does your results reflect an updated intellect? That's good right there. Next, is it aligned with where you are going or where you've been? That's my favorite right there. I want you guys to answer that. Is your intellect aligned with where you're going or where you have been? Right? Because when your intellect is updated and aligned, you won't second guess yourself. You will make decisions quick, right? When God said it's time to exit, I exited because my intellect is updated, right? When God said, these are all current things. When God said, I want you to purchase 4 tires for this person, I also want you to purchase an alignment for them. Immediately, I executed because my intellect is updated. I didn't say, well, God, how much? I didn't say, well, what type of tires? I didn't say when and who and where. All of the extra is what happens when the intellect is not updated. And so Marlene says, no, it's not. Yes. And so that's what you want to do. And here's the thing, Marlene, there are times, and everybody for that matter, there are times where I'll look at where I'm going because that's my barometer. I'll look at where I'm going and see that my intellect isn't aligned with where I'm going. It's more, it doesn't happen as much, but it does still happen. And I love it. Why? Because it's notification. It gives me opportunity to develop and strengthen my brilliance at the next dimension. And so ask yourself those questions. And then in asking yourself those questions, remember that an aligned intellect will always create new intersections. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I am grateful for your consistent presence. First of all, for yourself, giving yourself the opportunity to develop at the next dimension in every area of your life. You are so necessary. Get in alignment with where God has called you to be, not where you've been. Have an amazing day. Why? Because you can. See you next time.